There's been a lot written in recent times about how selfish we have become. I understand where this, usually a cry of despair and frustration, comes from. And it is no doubt true that a society based on consumerism, competition and greed has disrupted the notion of solidarity and community. But that's not the full story. And nor is it the final word on where we, as a society, are going. Margaret Thatcher said there's no such thing as society as her conservative revolution swept the land. That was updated by Boris Johnson in 2013, when he declared as part of his speech for the annual Margaret Thatcher Lecture that inequality is essential to fostering the spirit of envy which, like greed, he argued, was a valuable spur to economic activity. The greed is good dogma has its roots in the Chicago School of Economics. Led by Milton Friedman, and known as the Chicago Boys, they set about defining what makes a thriving economy. Low regulation, privatisation and the rolling back of the public sphere. Crucially, this would be a global project to be implemented by the International Monetary Fund, among others. This brand of rampant capitalism, which has come to be known as neoliberalism, was exported with profound and long-lasting consequences, and often through the use of force and anti-democratic coercion. For Friedman and his ideological acolytes who became hegemonic in the 1970s and 80s, greed was in reality the organizing principle of the corporation, the executive, the shareholder and indeed all individuals. In this way the sole purpose, the only task, of a corporate executive was to enrich their shareholders. In a wide-ranging critique of Friedman and the political representatives of the Chicago Boys who triumphed in the 1980s and set the economic consensus for the ensuing decades, Thatcher and Reagan, Nobel Prize-winning economist Dr. Joseph Stiglitz argues that this approach has been socially and economically disastrous. For Stiglitz, who disagreed but nevertheless respected Friedman, the approach led to intolerable levels of inequality. Such inequality is now seen as a threat to social peace, and the basis of political instability domestically and across the world, as well as a grave social ill by many defenders of capitalism as a whole, including Stiglitz. Paying attention to everyone else's self-interest, in other words to the common welfare, is in fact a precondition for one's own ultimate well-being. It isn't just good for the soul, it's good for business, he argues. But such is the short-term nature of profit-making, that planning investment, shoring up environmental protections and prioritizing the needs of the many, not the few, to coin a phrase, is countervailing to the logic of the system. So the logic needs to be accompanied by something a little more doctrinaire. After all, when CO for more on this story, visit the news article link.